I'm Rick Wade, Senior Vice President at the United States Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining me for this event series, Equality of Opportunity in Action, where we have conversations with leaders who are moving forward on these big issues that confront business and industry in the United States of America. One of those issues has to do with diversity, equity, inclusion. You know, 2 years ago, the U.S. Chamber convened thousands of CEOs, business leaders, policymakers, and other stakeholders to have a real conversation about addressing what we call inequality of opportunity in our country. And you know what? It just didn't end with conversation. From that, we actually launched a historic private sector-led Equality of Opportunity initiative that's designed to advance not only policy, but also private sector solutions to advance more equality of opportunity in America and close our opportunity gaps, focusing on issues like unemployment, criminal justice, health, wealth, entrepreneurship, and so much, much more. I'm delighted to be joined today by a good friend in the work with us, and that's Steve Sandher, CEO of the Associated General Contractors of America. Steve, thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks for inviting me. It's always good to see you.
Steve, you know, I had the wonderful honor, and it really was a privilege to join you for your national convention or conference in Grapevine, Texas, which, quite frankly, I'd never been in Grapevine before. So that was a
Neither had I.
double fun experience for me to see another part of our great country. But let's start out in level set, first of all, because I know, but tell us what is the Associated General Contractors of America?
Yeah, sure. AGC is the largest construction industry trade association. We were founded in 1918. We have 27,000 member firms in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico. We call ourselves the Construction Association because we're the only construction association that addresses every issue that impacts the construction industry.
Well, that's pretty significant. And one of the things that, I had an opportunity to testify on Capitol Hill, as you're aware, which you were a leader, and so was the U.S. Chamber for some 25 years, and advancing now what is now our Infrastructure Investment Act, which is really a historic, once-in-a-generation investment, as you know, in rebuilding America's modern-day infrastructure. And a big part of that, of the many parts, obviously, is the important role that the construction industry and your industry partners will play in rebuilding our infrastructure. But in that, we also recognize that there, from our past, decisions that we made in the past on our highways and infrastructure across America created some opportunity gaps, if you will. And we do believe that our Infrastructure Investment Act has the ability to help close some of those gaps. We have a partnership with the Kellogg Foundation called the Business Case for Racial Equity, and it says, Steve, that that we stand to gain some $8 trillion by year 2050 simply by closing the racial equity gap in domains again like unemployment and housing and transportation, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to dive into why diversity, equity, and inclusion is important for not only AGC but for your member companies, as we are now celebrating Construction Inclusion Week. Why is all of this important to you and your industry?
Well, the construction industry has suffered from chronic challenges in building its workforce. I mean, I've been with AGC for 35 years, and you could take our board agenda for the last 35 years, and there's going to be an item on workforce challenges. Right now, we have over 350,000 job openings in the construction industry. And I think we can easily understand why that is. You know, for construction craft work, you have to work outside. You can't work from home. You have, it requires physical labor in many instances. We have a educational system that's biased against encouraging young people to go into the construction crafts. where they can make a good middle class living. In fact, just recently, Bureau of Labor Statistics updated their average craft worker wage rate. It's over $35 an hour. So you can build a really good middle class life by engaging in the construction industry, learning a trade, and then beyond that, the opportunities to advance through upskilling and moving into being a construction supervisor, superintendent. Those opportunities exist. And then finally, with the idea of entrepreneurship, there are many of my member companies, small family-owned businesses, that started by a carpenter or a laborer or a plumber who worked for somebody else and then decided, I'm smart enough to run my own company and make a living at it. And they move on to do that. And we have thousands of success stories within our membership that tell that story.
Yeah, a couple of things. Here's the deal. I mean, just as we always talk about the business case, one, we know there's a moral imperative. It's the right thing to do. It's the smart thing to do for our companies and for our country to build what I call the more inclusive economy in our country. But I'm struck by your own business case that you have advanced within your industry. I mean, whether it's McKinsey and Deloitte, Citi, and others, they all point to the reality that companies that are more diverse and equitable and inclusive are simply more profitable, right? And they have better workforce cultures and environments. I mean, have you found that to be the case, and how important is that thesis in the construction industry and understanding not just the moral imperative, but the business case?
So I've already discussed the challenge in bringing people into the industry. Once you bring them into the industry, if you're lucky enough to get them, you want to keep them, right? So retention is a major issue as well. So we commissioned a study, the business case for diversity in the construction industry, and two big things that we found there. One, as you mentioned, the fact that construction businesses that have an inclusive culture and bring every diverse voices to the table have the opportunity to identify ways that they can improve as company in the delivery of construction projects. And then secondly, they're safer. Because if all of your employees on a construction project feel like they're part of the team and that their contributions to the success of that project are recognized and valued, they are going to be more cohesive, they're going to look out for each other, and they're likely going to be operating in a safer manner, and that needs to be encouraged.
I think that was probably one of the most fascinating parts of your case study that caught my attention. I think I saw a data point that supports that workers who have not been integrated into a workplace culture or who perceive themselves as sort of outsiders are more likely to have accidents, kind of because of the increased psychological and emotional stress of being excluded. And it's estimated that the total cost of fatal and non-fatal injuries to the construction industry is some $13 billion annually. That is a really astounding a cost, if you will, but also what an opportunity. And when you think about the importance of diversity and inclusion.
Right. And I may be anticipating your next question, but that's one of the reasons why we created, or actually we executed, we have a chapter in Washington State that created a program called Culture of Care for the construction industry, and they were kind enough to gift that to us, and we took it nationally. And the Culture of Care is a voluntary program where construction employers take a pledge to build a more inclusive workplace, and it's got a series of toolbox talks, as we call them, to demonstrate their commitment to that. And again, it's all part of this idea that everybody who's involved in the construction process is a valuable member of the team. And it doesn't matter what you look like, who you love, where you came from, how you worship. when it comes time to building the project, everybody is together. It's one unit, and everybody is valued for their contributions.
And those tools, Steve, are available to all of your member companies. Is that right?
And beyond. I mean, this is they're free. They are available to the industry. We are in the process of delivering some videos to go along with this. So yeah, we encourage everybody in the construction industry to take a look at this, and if it's appropriate for their company, and we think it is, that they take the pledge and implement the program.
I like that. And listen, I don't think we can underestimate the importance of those kinds of tools and just the idea of focusing on. I love your concept of the culture of care and providing businesses and industry the tools, whether it's on how you draft emails and social media messages or toolbox series or training in inclusion and diversity. Those tools are really, really important to companies.
And it goes beyond the diversity issue. Unfortunately, the construction industry suffers from a high mental illness and suicide rate. And a lot of that is because, let's be honest, construction is a male-dominated profession. And men of your age and my age were brought up with the stoicism that you don't talk about your feelings, and if you're not feeling well mentally, you don't raise your hand and ask for help. And so we're trying to destigmatize that as well, so that people that feel pressure, that feel anxiety, know that their employers will look out for them and help them get the care that they need. This has become a big issue for the industry, and we're trying to alleviate that to the best that we can.
Yeah. Well, Steve, thank you for referencing your age and my age, because we're in our 40s and I still love staying there, man. So even for men in their 40s, I know that's what you were referencing, late 30s and 40s, our age.
I'm in my very late 40s, very late.
I want to go back to something and the reason I want to do this and talk a bit more about the challenge is because you have some interesting solutions that you put forth. But I believe I saw some statistics when you think about diversity in the construction industry. I mean, one of the lessons I learned being at your summit is that most construction firms generally kind of having a hard time finding workers to hire. I mean, one, if we start there, and that's not unlike many other industries and sectors in our economy. But I think I saw specifically when you think about the fact that women account for some 51% of the overall workforce, but 16% of the construction workforce, and less than 6% of its craft workers. African Americans account for 12% of the U.S. workforce, but only 6% of the construction workforce. And I guess the theory is that unless the industry, again, not just construction, but particularly construction here in this conversation, can find a way to diversify as the demographics are changing in America, I mean, you really run the risk of lacking the staffing that you need to keep pace with the demand for construction today and into the future. Is that a right assessment?
Oh, absolutely. But at the same time, I consider it a target-rich environment. You've got large segments of our population that are significantly underrepresented in our industry. At the same time, Hispanic Americans are overrepresented. And of course, that has a lot to do with immigration patterns and historical immigration patterns. But at the same time, as I mentioned, we've got an average wage rate in the construction crafts of $35 an hour, which is not insignificant. That leads to a good middle class life, and we've got to do a better job of telling our story to folks that may not see the construction industry as an opportunity for them to have a career. And we've been doing that. We have a program called Construction is Essential, and we're targeting lower income households where we're trying to target people that are not likely to go to college, and try to get them to understand that there are opportunities for them in construction, and that there are ways for them to get training so that they can enter the industry. In many cases, that training is free. uh, and is provided by the employer. Um, so and we also have to look at folks that we in the past probably wouldn't have been comfortable with bringing onto our job sites, and returning felons, giving them a second chance. We obviously are always looking for returning veterans because they demonstrate traits that are necessary for success in construction. Being responsible, working safely, working in a team, as a team. All of these things, all of these characteristics that are positively rewarded in our industry.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that. That actually, when you think of for some, it's first chance and second chance hiring.
Right.
For those who are formerly incarcerated, it's such an untapped resource for talent in America at a time when we have tremendous workforce needs. So thank you for your commitment to that. It's one of the most important areas that we're advocating for across businesses and industry throughout the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, and Rick, we have chapters that do training in prison. They do craft training in prison, so that when these folks are released, they've got an opportunity to go and employ those skills that they've learned.
Yeah. I want to give you credit for much of the work that I've learned. I really have through AGC that is happening in the industry, because I think sometimes we all need to do a better story, and I want to help tell the story of successes that you are making in progress, but recognizing that there are challenges. But you do some stuff with HBCUs, I believe, historically Black College University. Tell me about that, Steve.
Yeah, so we have student chapters all over the country, and we do have some student chapters that are at historically Black colleges and universities, Florida A&M, Tuskegee, places like that. And in 2021, I think, one of our major partners, a construction software company called Procore, said that they wanted to endow a scholarship with our Education and Research Foundation. And knowing a little bit about their corporate culture, we got on a call with them, and I suggested, we really appreciate you wanting to endow a scholarship, but I'm wondering if we could have a conversation about going a little bit further than that. And they said, well, how's that? And I said, well, how would you feel about setting up a matching goal for us? If you put $250,000 up, we'll match it, and the proceeds from that scholarship will go to students in HBCUs who are enrolled in civil engineering or construction management programs. And they said, this fits our corporate culture. This is the type of thing we want to do. And it only took us about 6 months to be able to raise $250,000 to match their commitment. And so that money has already started to go out. We're looking at, we see that as this is a floor. We continue to raise money for this scholarship, and we see this as a really good opportunity, not only to provide financial help to students that we want to attract into our industry, but it gives us more of an opportunity to engage with these schools. We have members that go to these schools to recruit the students to come work for them. They have job fairs, and we have member firms that are there constantly to tap into that talent. So it's really good to help us meet our diversity objectives and provide really good, solid opportunities for students at the HBCUs.
That's outstanding. We have a big partnership with HBCUs called the Next Gen Business Partnership, where we not only engage and provide internship opportunities for HBCU students at trade associations like the Chamber and others, but engaging the presidents of these institutions and helping us design what we call value-added partnerships. So thank you for your work in that space, Steve. Two other things that I'm aware of that AGC that I don't think we take for granted, because this whole theory that leadership starts at the top. I believe you have actually a diverse and inclusion council or steering committee. Tell me more about that. And then second to that, this work is hard work. And I always tell people it certainly is. We're not going to correct whatever challenges that have existed for hundreds of years. It's a journey, for sure, and it's important that we celebrate and reward and award, and celebrate our progress. You also have a DNI awards program, and I think that's important because that becomes those folk who you reward become shining examples and inspire others. So tell me more about this DNI steering committee as well as your awards program.
Yeah, so we started our DNI steering committee, I want to say about 7 or 8 years ago. A gentleman that has been active in AGC came to me about 8 years ago, and he said, has AGC ever considered having a diversity and inclusion council? And I looked at him and I said, it hasn't come up, but I'm embarrassed that we don't. Mm. So that started that. We had an open forum in I think it was in Chicago soon after that, where we invited folks. We took out the flip charts, and we what should AGC and the construction industry be doing in this area. And so from that, we put out our business case, as you've already mentioned. We celebrate the firms that commit to diversity and inclusion, and have programs that include things like using our culture of care, that have a commitment to supplier diversity and subcontractor diversity. So all of those things that help move the ball on diversity and inclusion, we recognize and celebrate at that forum, at that meeting at our convention. And I think you passed out the trophies at that event.
And I'm happy to come back and pass out more.
We're going to Vegas in March, so I'll see you there.
I'm in, man. Okay. I'm in Vegas any day. You touched on one other area as we kind of continue to move forward and wrap this up in a moment that I want to spend some time on, and that is in this area of supplier diversity. In a previous life, I was a senior official at the U.S. Department of Commerce, and one of our agencies was the Minority Business Development Agency, the only agency of its kind that always existed by executive order. For the first time ever, and the U.S. Chamber helped to lead the fight. It's now codified. It's now in law with this first Undersecretary of Minority Business for the United States of America, Don Cravens, who we actually just hosted at our U.S. Chamber Equality Summit opportunity recently. Did a wonderful conversation with Neil Bradley, our Executive Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer. But it reminded me of the incredible role of the 8 million plus minority-owned businesses, Hispanic, Asian American, African American, Native American, that they are, the role that they play in our economy. And I've made the case, and I will continue to make the case, that I believe our Infrastructure Investment Act lends itself to tremendous opportunities for our minority-owned firms. And in your own business case, you talked about the fact that it's projected that 50% of businesses entering the construction industry will be minority or female-owned today and into the future. And even the Hackett Group, I think, in your report, talked about the reality that 75% of diverse suppliers either meet expectations or, quite frankly, exceed the expectations of companies who provide them opportunities. How do we bring more minority-owned firms as suppliers, as partners in the construction industry? And I know you have a number of companies who are leading the charge on that. But I think that's really important as well. We think about talent. How do we do more partnering and working together with minority-owned firms?
Well, Rick, I mean, we've had these conversations privately, and one of the challenges is knowing who these firms are and where they are. Traditionally in the construction industry, if you're doing federal or federally assisted work, you have an obligation to go out and find minority firms and women-owned firms as subcontractors on the project. And the challenge in many cases is, the directory or the list of who these firms are outdated. You have firms that have gone out of business. These lists don't include firms that have emerged, that are in business and are contributing to the industry. One challenge we have is being able to find these firms. Now, AGC in our chapters provides an opportunity for these firms to become members of AGC, market themselves to general contractors and specialty contractors, saying we can meet your needs. We'd like to come in and talk to you about what our business does and how we can help you. So that's really a good opportunity and for them, and as well as for the firms that want to utilize their services.
Well, and you're right. You and I have had these conversations, and we're excited to work with you and other industries, by the way. Mm-hmm. This is something that the Chamber has been working on for some time to figure out how we can, with our members and other companies, be more intentional. And we're looking to launch a whole supplier development strategy and initiative in this space. We use the term, they're out there, but they're hidden in plain sight. And yes. So we gotta get them more connected, and we look forward to launching what we think will be a very innovative technology driven solution to help you identify those companies and build an ecosystem where they can partner and get to know each other. So we're really excited, but this is a big deal as we think about growing opportunities and expanding America's economy.
And if I could just add one thought to that, the construction industry is like every other industry. Business relationships are a human experience, yes. Right? People that you see, people that you know, people who have done business for you in the past, somebody who comes in and gives you not only a good price, but also performs, to expectations or beyond. That is what leads to continuing business relationships, and being able to bring those folks together will ultimately create more opportunities for everybody.
Yeah, and and where we can, I really do want to help share those best practices. I was thrilled in our Equality of Opportunity Summit that we just hosted at the U.S. Chamber, which was our first hybrid event, by the way, in equality and the work we're leading, but was broadcasted out to thousands of companies and stakeholders across America. But Gilbane, thanks to your support, just their story is amazing, where they made a $4 billion commitment to women and veteran and minority and LGBTQ and other diverse businesses over the course of next several years. And that matters as well. And so we know there are companies out there who are just doing a terrific job, and we applaud them for their commitments.
Well, and Gilbane is one of the firms that has been part of the Leadership in Construction Inclusion Week, which we're involved in this week. Yeah. So they've been a leader in this, and they have been very supportive of our efforts.
Yeah. We think about often this work around, as you celebrate your annual Construction Inclusion Week, and even the work that I lead among my many responsibilities at the Chamber of helping to address equality of opportunity and all the conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion. We hope that there comes a time when we don't have to have a Construction Inclusion Week in America. But if you had to, I guess, with the crystal ball, look into the future, I mean, what would you like to see if we were sitting here? I know we both agree we're in our early 40s, but 40 more years from now, Steve, what would success look like for you in this space? I mean, how do you feel? How do you feel optimistic that we're making great progress despite the challenges we have?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, I'd like to see more African American plumbers and electricians than African American CPAs. I'd like to see the number of people that are underrepresented in our skilled crafts increase. I'd like to see more like 30% of the workforce of the craft workers, craft professionals, be female. Because I'll tell you just a story. I was at basically a career fair and there was a TV crew going around interviewing high school students. And they caught this young lady, senior in high school, who wanted to be a plumber. And she was all excited because there was a representative of the plumbing industry there. And she said the reason she wanted to be a plumber was because she had small hands, and she knew that her hands could get into spaces that the boys' hands couldn't get to, because her hands were smaller, and she thought that would make her more valuable as a plumber than men. I don't care what her reason is. The fact that she was excited about having the opportunity to become a plumber was great, and that story needs to be expanded on and told.
Yeah, it reminds me, and I'm unapologetic when I say I grew up in this state in a rural community in South Carolina, and I do remember back in high school with there were classes that we call shop.
Right.
They were vocational and technical in nature, right? Plumbing and electricians. And you think we focus enough on that?
No.
I don't think we do either.
No,
Steve,
we don't.
Right? And we need
The
to
federal
celebrate
government-
those pathways more.
Right. And these are jobs that can't be offshore.
That's right.
Right? Okay. And the other point about it is the federal government invests 6 times as much in higher education than they do in career and technical education. Notwithstanding the fact that less than 35% of the jobs in this country require a college degree. I mean, I have a college degree, you have a college degree. It worked for us, but let's face it, there were kids in our class that were intelligent, they were smart, they were driven, but they probably weren't going to be successful in college, but they're probably, successful in other ways. And it's, they have a pathway, and other kids need to understand that if they don't want to go to college, that doesn't mean that their life is over. It means there are other opportunities that they can grab onto and earn a great living and have a successful life in a craft that's a profession that the skills can't be transferred.
That's right. And some of them, perhaps and hopefully will be inspired to become their own entrepreneurs and start their own firms, right? I mean, the need is so great there. Right?
That's right. I think we've all had bosses that we thought we were smarter than.
Well, listen, I want to ask you one final question, which is probably the most difficult of all, Steve. I enjoy talking with you, and I know that the work that we do every day is difficult, but it's meaningful. It's important to our companies. It's important to business and industry. It's important to America. But what do you do for fun? I mean, give me one or two things. Is it reading a good book, or I'm just curious. I always think that it's important to put the true face on leadership, and part of that leadership is being able to unplug and have fun. And I'd just be curious if you could share with me and my audience, what does Steve do for fun?
I'll give you 3 things.
Good.
I like to read biographies.
Nice.
Because I want to know how people have become successful. I want to know what challenges that they overcome, what mistakes they made, and that's one thing. Secondly, it's my favorite time of the year because it's baseball postseason. I'm a big baseball fan. And third, I like to play golf, even though I'm not very good at it.
Well, there it goes. Well, listen, Steve Sander, thank you so much, CEO of Associated General Contractors, for being with us today. It really is a thrill to take this journey with you, to address not only diversity in our country and close opportunity gaps, but to build a strong America. And I mean that in all sincerity. It's been a pleasure to get to know you and to learn from you. And I appreciate
you as well.
This chance to talk with you today.
Thanks. You as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you.